Welcome to another episode of Distory. My name is Kirk from Walrus Carp, and with me, as always, is not Skipper Kate. It's instead our fair weather feather friend, Kate, this evening, because tonight we are going to celebrate and debate between what was Walt Disney's best Barker bird. Juan Barker bird over for the Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room, or would it be, well, it depends on what you want to call him, either the Pirates Barker bird, or some people have called him Peg Leg Pete outside of or inside of Pirates of the Caribbean, depending on where you're located. Kate, how are you doing this evening with the extended intro?
I'm doing great, Kirk. I've had a couple people ask me leading up to this, like, what is a Barker bird? And I was like, well, we've got stories for you. But I was really excited to talk about this. It's not to talk about it. We're going to actually, a little bit of fight, a little bit of debate, a little bit of back and forth about this.
Yep.
But a Barker, if anybody knows what a Barker is somebody who like calls out to you like in a carnival or something and tries to draw you into something. And so Disney throughout history has had some of these birds that had that role to try to draw you into attractions.
Yep. Probably for most people, the most commonplace one that still is used today, and this is throughout all theme parks, but also carnivals, roving carnivals, or boardwalks, would be any of the playable games, shooting water games, throwing the ball games. It's like, step right up, come on down, and So this is to draw attention and bring you into an attraction.
Yes, and so I, like Kirk said, I'm going to be doing the one that is in the Tiki Room, or was in the Tiki Room for a little while, and he's going to be doing one that's from Pirates of the Caribbean. So we have two different sides here, but I think we both have some history on both birds that we get to share, which is real fun. So
yeah,
be interesting.
Yeah.
Should I go first since I have the older bird?
Age before beauty.
Hey, my bird was quite attractive. Thank you very much.
I'm going to hold. I have so much I want to say, but I will wait.
The bird that I am going to be debating tonight, and I'm kind of including all of the Tiki Room Barker birds in mind because it's not just one that was at Disneyland. There's also one that was at Disney World, but it's a little bit more secondary to the main Disneyland bird, and that is our good friend Juan, the Barker bird, who was a cousin to Jose, who's also behind me on my shelf. And he actually had two different colors because there's two different versions of him. So sometimes he was blue and sometimes he was this red color that I just showed you. But that's because they had two versions of him and they would pull him out of the elements and go tuck him away and then replace him with the other one while they had to repair him because he didn't have any like shade or anything. He was just chilling.
Fun fact about the birds in the Tiki Room in general, if you haven't listened to our Tiki Room episodes, all of these birds had interchangeable feathers and clothing. So you could actually pull that costuming off and replace it over mechanics. When next time you're in the Enchanted Tiki Room, make sure to look and find birds that are very, very close to the birds in the center, because a mechanic friend who works in California in Disneyland has had to replace many times the costuming or mechanic work. Sometimes they have to actually move the mechanical ones around. So pretty cool.
Yeah. Ever since you told me that, I can't stop looking at the ones kind of in the back.
Yeah, because you're like, wow, that's Pierre. You're like, that's exactly Pierre. And you're like,
I know who that is.
It is Pierre on purpose.
Back to Juan the Barker bird. I have so many facts about this. His main role was to, like we said, draw you into the attraction. So there's a good shot of him with Mr. Walt Disney himself. Feels weird to call him that. Here he is with Walt. I think that's how Walt would prefer it.
Walter Elias Disney is holding this bird. Mr. Walter Elias.
It's like, where did that come from? So here he is with the little Barker bird, Juan. And so Juan, he was positioned, I will tell you a little bit more about like where he is and what happened to him and whatnot, but he would try to draw you into the attraction. So he hung out right here on this little outrigger canoe above the Tiki Room, drawing you in. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but that's I'll stop there so that you can give a little introduction to your bird, because I could talk about this one for an hour. So,
Okay. Yo ho, a parrot's life for me, because the best parrot has to be the one, the only, designed and drawn. Oh, Mark Davis. Does it get any better than Mark Davis? Or thank you, Exitensio. You have, oh, look at you. I had him already queued up. You already got him. I like it. Samesies. I mean, it's so cool seeing him actually create him. So the one thing that's really cool, again, shares a similar origin story to Kate's bird, Juan, with this was meant to draw people into the attraction. I love that we get concept art that is, we went through lots of Mark Davis's concept art in the Jungle Cruise episode. And in that book, there's tons and tons of illustrations, and this is one of them. So I think they matched identically to what the bird ended up being. Some notable things: you have a Buccaneer style, a eye patch. You have a peg leg. There is the Jolly Roger skull and crossbones below, and then a shaved part of his chest. And he has a tattoo of an anchor, which I think is pretty.
That's what he needs. He needs it to be shaved so he can see his tattoo.
Yeah, I mean, how else would you have that? So, and then this is Mark Davis actually working on the figure itself, and then Exitensio, who I don't know what he sang, right, or wrote. Did he write? He wrote. He wrote Pirate's Life for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
he wrote. He wrote the lyrics for it.
What I love to do is like,
I just mentioned.
Yeah.
I will say that I shouldn't be making an argument for you, for your bird, but I can't help myself, because Exitensio, that song, that Yo-Ho, A Pirate's Life for Me, they actually played that at his funeral, which is such a moving moment, I think, for his life.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah.
No, it was a big, that and Grim Grinning are two earworms that you cannot, they're just iconic nostalgia, but then the whole day you're singing it.
Yeah.
I just like the base of this box that has all the wiring, because again, the wiring's going through its foot, right? So it's, again, when we look at audio animatronics, it's just kind of cool to see the inner workings of them. So you can see the pedestal wiring goes up and then goes up its foot. For yours, I'm assuming probably goes up through the pole.
You can see it. Yeah. You see the wire coming out from the black,
oh yeah.
On the part. Mm-hmm. So it goes down through the pole and then out that wire behind the bird. That's how he's wired.
Yeah. So, I mean, you gotta all right, ready? Just leave this up. You kind of have to make your own assumptions here on what do you prefer on your bird. Do you prefer a pirate hat or more of a Dapper Dan style hat with the collar and bow tie, or and it's hats?
Well, look at my little guy. He's got a cute little, adorable bow tie and this really fun hat. And he's just he's so dapper. He's so cute. And he's hanging out with Walt. So, I mean, I get extra points for that. I do love Mark Davis and I do love Exitensio. Hard to compete with Walt. Just saying.
Yeah. Listen, it's not like Walt didn't know about this bird. It's just I don't have a picture that you have.
It's interesting that I don't know if he was involved with that bird, because it was after he passed that they put that Pirates in Walt Disney World. It was long past it, because they weren't going to put that in Disney World at all. They didn't add it till 1973. That was many years after he passed.
Right. However, we did have there also was one in your queue as well. So we got double. But I don't know the timing. I couldn't find dates on installation or removal, and which I thought was kind of interesting. But I also, don't you kind of feel like these parrots are very reminiscent? Like, you picked the dapper one, I picked the pirate. Like, doesn't that make sense, personality-wise?
It does, for sure. Well, if we're going to talk about, how they were created, I think it's really important that we talk about how the Barker bird was created, because he had a lot of female creators. Of course, Harriet Burns was involved in so many ways, making the feathers on the outside. Blaine Gibson did the actual sculpting of the birds, but Harriet Burns did this, the feathering and figuring out how to make the chests breathe for these birds. They go in and out, if you didn't know that. And that that's a little funny story for that, which I think we told way back when we did Tiki Room episode. But she was trying to figure out how to put something on the chests of the birds so that when it expanded and contracted, it gets stretched out over time. And she was watching Walt kind of like gesture around as he was telling stories, and she noticed his famous blue wool sweater that he wore, the elbows on them never got stretched out, even though he was always like moving his hands and arms. So she is like, I should use the same material as his sweater for the chest on the birds. And she did. They manufactured, it's like a wool blend that they use for the chest on the birds. So Harriet Burns, the first female Imagineer, was heavily involved in making the Barker bird. So I'm going to make that as one of my points of argument, that she was, and not only her though, not only her. We also had Joyce Carlson, which was one of the other female Imagineers that worked in the model shop. And one of my favorites, Miss Glendra von Kessel, Baroness Glendra von Kessel. And so she's an actual baroness from Germany who fled during the beginning of World War II. She was fleeing the country because they did not like what the Axis powers were doing there. And her husband stayed behind and unfortunately didn't make it out of the country. So she fled with her sons and came to America and got a job in the model shop. She had these fantastically long nails that she sharpened to a point and then picked up like all of paper with them because she said she was allergic to paper. And gosh, who was it? It was someone asked her, I think it was Kim Irvine, asked her how old she was. And she said, darling, I'm like 3 years older than God, I think was what she said.
It's pretty old.
So she is a amazing character who worked on these original Tiki Room Barker birds in the model shop. And I think having a baroness work on my Barker bird, I think leans to that side.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, an actual baroness from Germany.
Yeah.
Royalty.
So
I tell you what, I came prepared.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's always like one of these things is what research is available, what books are available, what information is available. So like you only can like piece together what you have. So I'm going to share what I have. So some of this is a little bit of additions of new and old, right? So we get something that was placed when Pirates was installed in Walt Disney World, and then they added one at Disneyland for the actual parrot, not the attraction. Attraction was, of course, with Disneyland first. But then once we get Typhoon Lagoon, we get a little bit more information, and there's some refurbishments. We had talked about this a lot, especially in the Skipper Canteen episode when we're talking about the SEA, the Society of Explorers and Adventurers, and Mary Oceaneer. Now, Mary Oceaneer owned a wide variety of parrots because we don't actually know where the origin of Pegleg Pete or the pirate parrot came from. However, there is a little bit of fan theory, and I could see where it comes from based on the look and style of her parrots, which she has had many, many. We know one of them for sure is Mary Oceaneer's parrot. That is the one with Dirty Foot the pirate, which I'm sorry, he has a terrible name, but I didn't name him. That's just what guests call him, is Dirty Foot. But here's Mary Oceaneer, and this is one of her many birds. But this one, I mean, this is very reminiscent, and I could make a couple of connections. He was lost at sea. His name was Salty, and Salty had an eye patch over the same eye. However, no peg leg and no shaved chest. Now, but if you look at Mary Oceaneer, very regal.
Was she an actual baroness?
I don't know if she was a baroness. I'd have to look it up. I know she's got lots of gold and jewels, and she's got a huge schooner, if that matters, and she looks like she's a captain, so I'll give her that. But if you look down here on her scabbard, there is a Jolly Roger on the hilt, which I think is kind of cool.
Cool.
Yeah, just a little tiny piece. And then I found this is from a Disney cruise line, like just random mural painted on the wall. And that is, again, Salty is stuck in a pack of salty crackers. Again, though, no peg leg yet. But is that the same parrot? I don't know. Some of the coloration makes me think that it could be. However, told you there are several parrots that Mary Oceaneer has had. If we go into, and this is, you can actually see this physically now, and it makes me freak out that I've never been on this attraction because I am missing everything. So under the sea, which I think is a funny call out to the Little Mermaid, but SEA, Society of Explorers and Adventurers, you see a diving bell, but then you see a different parrot, no eye patch, different coloration, no yellow, with Mary Oceaneer. And this time, his name is Duncan. And Duncan was crashed and was marooned on the ship. Hang on, what is the ship's name? It is the Salty Mary 4 that crashed. And the Salty Mary 4, we can actually see, this is that boat. And right here, you notice, like, what do you call those things? Spyglass? Sure. Spyglass. So when you go up this raft ride on Typhoon Lagoon, still exists today, Duncan is there looking in the eyeglass. Like, isn't that so cool?
He reminds me of Iago.
And the best part is, I agree. I don't know what he sounds like. I've never been on the attraction, but he is an audio animatronic. Doesn't look like he's moving right here, but he moves and says things. So I am freaking out, and I need to desperately go on there. The other thing that is really cool, he is wearing a old school, we saw that diver's bell. He's wearing an old school scuba outfit. Like, there's the scuba helmet down there that would lock in place.
That's cool.
So, but then also there's very many treasure things, barrels, fine china. There's a chest back here with some gold leaking out. So the whole concept of pirates and parrots, Mary Oceaneer, fun connection, does tie into pirates, but I just thought that was kind of cool to talk about a few more of pirating parrots.
No, I think that's really cool. However, I don't think it...
A parrot scope? It should have been called a parrot scope.
I would make the argument, though, that isn't your actual Barker bird parrot. So how much of that can you actually use for this argument of which is best?
I'm pointing out interesting things, Kate.
Mm-hmm. So let's go back to the Barker bird for a minute. So I was talking about how he was sitting outside. So you can also see he has this really adorable little cane, too, as well as his top hat and his little tie over time. You can see it doesn't look as thick as it was in that original Walt picture. But here's where he sat without any covering over him, probably because it was Southern California where he was sitting outside the Tiki Room. And behind him, you see the goddess Uti, which we talked about in our Tiki Room episode, holding a torch. This is the only original goddess that was made by Raleigh Crump that does not exist in Disneyland anymore. This statue has disappeared because this entire section collapsed once upon a time, and then they never replaced this statue. It went backstage at Disneyland for a while, and then somebody stole it, and it was never seen again. So it's probably chilling in somebody's backyard or living room or something somewhere. But you'll see that Uti is holding a torch, which is pretty interesting because I'm going to get into a couple of my script things as we go here because there's so many fascinating details with this original Barker Bird script of what this bird actually said. There are several song references in this script. It's a long one for the Tiki Room Barker Bird, but one of them refers to a song. He actually sings part of it and says, he says, I do many impressions, and he does a couple of calls, and he says, I don't want to set the world on fire, but I think this kid behind me is carrying a big torch for somebody. So he's referring to Uti, the goddess behind him, is carrying this torch. And of course, that language we also see in the Carousel of Progress later on with the daughter who's holding the Statue of Liberty torch, and says, carrying a torch for the guy that she's interested in, right? But the song, when he says, I don't want to set the world on fire, is a song by the Ink Spots from 1941. And so it has, I'll just play a little bit for you here.
It's a great song.
Okay. So it's, I don't want to set the world on fire. I just want to start a flaming heart. It's a great song. It became very popular with the Ink Spots there after Pearl Harbor, ironically enough, is when that song became popular. So that is just one of the many, many song references that are in there. But I love that it also refers to Uti, the goddess of fishing, who taught the fishermen to hold torches above their head, and then that would attract fish to their boat so they could spear them. That was the goddess Uti. So that's one of the many things that is in the script. I'll do maybe I'll do one more, and then I'll let you do maybe some script things, and then we'll come back because I have a lot of the script. This old Tiki Room was originally sponsored by United Airlines, and we talked about this before. That is because after World War II, a lot of the soldiers that came back from World War II, they were stationed in Polynesia, land. So they were stationed in the South Pacific. They brought back a lot of that tiki culture and things that they loved from the war and brought it back. And that's why we had this outburst of tiki culture in the United States. So one of the sponsors, United Airlines, they were there because they were promoting their flights to Hawaii because it was a very trendy thing to go to Hawaii, and it was pretty new at that point. So United Airlines was their sponsor. So you'll see a lot of things in this script that allude to United Airlines. One of them is, he says, "Come Josephine in my flying machine, and away we go the United Airlines way." We're not sponsored by United Airlines, by the way, yet. So this, of course, comes from a song that was originally recorded. I think it was actually a little bit earlier than this, but it was 1911. No, 1911 was when it was written by Alfred Bryan and Fred Fisher, and then it was recorded by Ada Jones and Bill Murray. And this one, I have the cover art for it. If you guys remember this is a song that became very popular in the movie Titanic because it is the one that Jack sings to Rose as they're on the bow of the ship. "Come Josephine in my flying machine," and it's "Up she goes." And I do have a little bit of the song. I feel like we need to hear it because most of us, I think, probably know it from Titanic, but have never heard the original version of it.
Come Josephine in my flying machine, going up she goes, up she goes. Balance yourself like a bird on a beam in the air. She goes, there she goes.
I'm going to stop there because the chorus is what I really want you guys to pay attention to there, because I cracked up when I finally got this joke, because it says, "Come Josephine in my flying machine, going up she goes, up she goes." And then it says, "Balance yourself like a bird on a beam. In the air she goes, up she goes." And I was like, oh my gosh. And this is, the Barker bird is literally balanced on a beam up in the air.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, somebody was listening to that song while they were making this and was like, oh, that's perfect.
And I was like, he's literally balanced on a beam hanging up by Uti. So, yeah. Little reference to not only this wonderful piece of nostalgic history in the United States for the airline industry, but also our wonderful movie Titanic. Anyway, you got script things?
Yeah. What's funny is I always think about everything develops from what you have, right? You your base information, and then what do you extract, and what lens do you use to extract it from? And I always notice that you tend to do a more musical route, and I always think that's interesting. It's as you make really good connections and inferences that probably would have went way over my head because I wouldn't have necessarily caught an obscure musical reference to some those two songs. I would have totally missed. I would have just read it as is and maybe not have pulled that out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, music was what my degree was in, and I live with a musician, so it makes sense that music is.
Yeah. No, it's just cool. It's just, again, I think that's kind of interesting. So.
Yeah. Well, I have more, but why don't we pop over to your pirate Barker bird and hear what you got?
I want to talk about locations. My original location for my Barker bird was not in the front, which, if you've never seen this before, I'll just show a quick picture. Any of the videos that I've had will have a picture of Peg Leg Pete or the parrot, or maybe Salty. I don't know. It might be Salty. Up in the front as he's squawking away. But originally, he was located which I think is really interesting. I was dying to find a picture and I can't. He was on the gangway leaving the attraction. So on the exit, you get out of the longboats and you would go up that gangway, that moving platform, right? It's like a giant conveyor belt. and he was on the upper right. Now we now listen to either Davy Jones or Captain Barbossa or whomever they want to put in there. But in that little kind of like alcove dungeon, there's like an in cut on the right hand side. That's originally where he was located.
No way. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he originally was in the exit ramp, but because people were walking like try to like it was
Go
just
down the
like a log jam. Yeah, because everyone was in the way trying to listen to what this parrot's saying, because he has a lot of really iconic lines, and it does go to a melody and instrumentally most of the time to pirates. So yeah, they had to move him almost immediately as guests were refusing to leave the exit queue.
Well, that's so interesting. I mean, like, can I just say that is so similar to what happened with the Barker bird over in Disneyland? What he caused in giant traffic jam because people had never seen a talking audio animatronic figure before in their life. This was brand new technology in 1963. It worked so well that they had this giant like log jam of people that were trying to get in to see the bird, and they were just standing in the entrance. If you've ever been to Disneyland and gone through the entrance to Adventureland, it's not a very wide space. So the fact that people were stopping there to try to see it was a huge issue, and that was the main reason that bird was removed. So interesting that like traffic was something in both sides.
Yeah,
That they had to address. Yours just moved. Ours was like we just took them out.
yeah. So similar reasons why they were moved or removed. But again, I think calling back to the fact that Juan was the first, right? Or any of the Tiki Room original birds in Disneyland were the first. It would freak anybody out. Do you know what I mean? I think people were more used to audio animatronics if they had been to California and visited Disneyland. So that technology had existed for more than a decade at that point. So it was less of but it was just of a crazy interest, not just that it's a talking parrot, but what is the parrot saying? So,
well, can I show this real quick?
Yeah,
Sorry.
do. No,
I know it's your turn, but
you're good.
So I have an actual video of the parrot from 1963 this is Juan the Barker bird who's chilling out on his perch, and it does show the traffic of the people who can't get through.
In Walt Disney's enchanted Tiki Room. Hurry, hurry to Tiki Room. Tikis make drum go boom. Magic is happening. All the birds and flowers sing. Better come see this thing. Walt Disney's enchanted Tiki Room. Come to the Tiki Room. Hurry to the Tiki Room.
So, yeah.
A little hokey, but yeah.
A little hokey. Hey.
In the crowd who just looked like a complete mope. They were just like at least the one guy with his kid, he's like, but everybody else is like,
they're like trying to figure out what it is and listening to him, they're like, what is this?
I feel like it's a bunch of cavemen who just saw somebody driving a car. They're like, what is that thing?
Sorry, I didn't interrupt you. You talk
No,
placement.
You're good. Okay, so I want to talk about placement before I get into script. I do have some script things. However, you had shown me a video earlier. Do you still have that video pulled up? I have him in a completely different location than it.
Okay, so this is where he is now. I took this. This was probably early last year, I think.
So is that right at the end?
Yeah, and the beginning, both.
Okay, so all right, he is still in the same spot. It's just the way that picture was angled. I had no idea where that was in the attraction.
Yeah.
That though, however, yours has been replaced with cotton, correct? The one from the actual film. Is he yellow and blue?
Yeah, he's yellow and blue.
Okay,
He's got more yellow.
Yeah, so that was during the refurb for like probably 2006-ish when Pirates came out. It's probably when they put cotton in place in yours. However, ours, we lost ours. They didn't replace ours with a cotton for any extended period of time. So, but I do have an original video of the OG one in that exact same place.
He's got a little hat.
But yeah, he's got his little parrot hat. Yours though, and this was in 2004, so this is 2 years before they did the refurb. You notice your one did not have a shaved chest with the tattoo on it, which I think is kind of interesting. I don't know why that was.
I'm trying to pull up the original. I have the original 1967 version. I was going to try to pull it up real quick and see if I can see if the bird was there at that point.
Well, let me then show, while you're looking that up, I'll show what ours looked like. This is the video is not as good, but the audio is one of the best. I have another one that's just straight audio, but then I can actually go into script work. You notice also the chest is moving here, so that same sweater material was used, and I just think it's kind of cool because it's sometimes harder to see with the feathers, but this has like a completely exposed chest because of the tattoo.
Salty old pirates, eh? Salty old pirates, salty old pirates. This be the place, this be the place. Start a march through the arches, matey. It'd be a short march through the old fortress. Past the dungeons, the pirates go. Pirates go, pirates go. There be long boats waiting to take you aboard. All hands on deck. We sail to the tide, sail to the tide. Ahoy, you swabbies! Stand by to repel boarders!
Oh,
Any luck finding it? If not,
I mean, I have the original. Yeah, no, I have the original video, and I was looking through it, and this is the original one that is from Walt Disney. Like Walt Disney Studios made this like recording, and I was like, this is near the end. I was like, okay, maybe we'll get there. It was like a boat full of kids standing up. And they're like, it just like ends.
Instead, it's just a kid who's like, sit down.
And the more you're getting, it like goes from where they enter. I can show it to you. They go from where you enter, and then it doesn't. It like skips that part, which is so frustrating. This is the original entrance where you just like walk right into it. This is opening day for Pirates of the Caribbean, and then it just skips it and goes right to Lafitte's Landing where they're loading. Yeah. So it doesn't give me any footage, which is such a bummer. But it's okay.
It's okay. It exists somewhere. We'll get access to it eventually. Yeah. So moving back to the script, right? So we start off with an instrumental of yo ho, a pirate's life of me. And then the bird starts to sing, yo ho, a parrot's life for me. Which, by the way, that you like the squawk, I know.
I do.
I've been squawking on that ride since day one. I love that. And every time I look at the parrot at the end, it reminds me of this Barker parrot. So there's like a little nostalgia there as well, which is cool. You're going to want to remember that parrot's life for me because it's going to come back a little bit later. There's a lot of longevity with my parrot. Like he doesn't, even though he gets removed in 2006 from this attraction, he's not forgotten and shows up a bunch more places, including cartoons and merch and whatnot. So there's a lot of longevity and a lot of guest love for this. So a parrot's life for me, a parrot's life for me. He does a wolf whistle, which I don't know why he does a wolf whistle, but I guess to draw in attention. But he mentions a couple of things, right? This be the place if you're seeking adventure and salty old pirates, salty old pirates, salty old pirates. I keep going. They use salty 3 times. Now, granted,
he's a parrot. He just repeats himself.
I know. I understand that. But we hear salty and pirates. Like, it's almost like salty was with the pirates. Like, I still think there's a connection. This is my own fan theory that salty potentially could be this parrot who lost. Imagine you're Mary Oceaneer. You lose your bird in the Spanish Main, in the Caribbean, and a bunch of pirates find it. They shave its chest. Maybe a shark nibbles its foot off. He had a peg leg. Boom, bam, the thing is good. He was already there. You know what I mean?
A shark. I love it to a shark. A shark is biting a bird. He's not taking a nibble off.
Do you think it was a crab? It's probably a crab.
Something smaller than
A crab would make more sense. The shark is more exciting.
But he repeats so many things in the script. He repeats Pirates Cove, Pirates Cove. He repeats, oh no, he's a gold doubloons. He repeats
what parrots
Pirates,
they
Pirates Life for Me. It's a parrot. He's going to repeat all the things.
I know, but the fact that they used Salty to name the parrot afterwards is just interesting to me because it was a part of the script here.
Okay. But Salty was also just like a thing for pirates, right? It's like a term for pirates.
Yeah, when they wrote it.
Salty.
Yeah, but it's revisionist history with Mary Oceaneer. She didn't exist when this existed. So live in the revision, you know? We don't look at the Jungle Cruise and go, "Oh man, I guess like none of the new skippers matter." Like, come on. They all matter now. And besides, this is my fun fan theory.
Okay.
Because I think it's really
It's cute.
It's super interesting.
It's fun.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's true. It's a fun fan theory. The other thing, I never knew that the boats were called longboats before until reading the script. There will be longboats down by Pirates Cove, which
they're longboats in Disney World. They're not longboats at Disneyland. They're bateau there because you're in New Orleans and you're entering in the bayou. So they have
I wonder if the script was different and said something different than longboats and said something about bateaus.
I don't think our bird in Disneyland has that wide of a vocabulary from what I've heard. Like everything that I've listened to, it has a couple small phrases, but it's more like, ahoy. It's more like this. Yours in Disney World has all of this like, this be the place if you be seeking adventure and salty of pirates, Spanish Main, right this way. Like he's telling you like directions. He's saying, go this way, straight ahead for the boats. Like none of that in Disneyland because they don't need it. It's literally people walking by in line and those floating by in boats. So it's all just kind of like atmospheric.
That's interesting. I didn't look up too much of the Disneyland one. That's interesting. But you're right. It does mention going through the arches, past the dungeon, into the old fortress. We sail the tide. A couple of things that get mentioned here. The Spanish Main, which geographically, if you've never learned what the Spanish Main is, it's pretty cool. And they actually had pirate locations. So it was from essentially Central Florida all the way down to the northern part of South America and then into most of Central America and into Mexico. So they had lots of different areas, but of course on the map, Tortuga, Port Royal, New Providence, which is Nassau now, and Providence. So, you know, I just think it's cool that I never knew what the Spanish Main was, but this was the Spanish Empire when they were, you know, out there conquering during this time period of actual pirates. And this was in the 1600s.
Do you have up near New Orleans, do you have Jean Lafitte's area there? Because I see an arrow coming from that direction.
Yeah, there is. They call it Barataria Bay is the pirates.
Yeah.
Barataria Bay. Right here.
I think, Barataria. I learned how to pronounce it once upon a time, Barataria. But that is where Jean Lafitte was located, and he was a notorious pirate. And it's like an island off of New Orleans because I've had people argue with me saying like there's no pirates in New Orleans. I was like, well, actually, that's where Lafitte was from.
According to the World History Encyclopedia, in 1670, each one of these locations with the skull and crossbones was a buccaneer and pirate haven.
Mm-hmm.
So that would make sense.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I don't know if I've ever looked up what the Spanish Main was. So a Spanish Main is like a territory with all of these.
Yeah. I mean, if it was all shaded in, it would be part of Florida and then all the way down Mexico coast, all of Central America, parts of South America, and then the Caribbean was all the Spanish Main. It would be areas that were conquered by the Spanish in the 1600s. And then obviously the pirating lasted for several centuries. It wasn't like something that was like short. And there was lots of privateers. We went through a decent amount of this, I feel, history on pirates at one point. Probably covering something about Lafitte, you know? So, but yeah, I never knew what the Spanish, I honestly thought it was a boat. I was like you take the longboats to go to the Spanish Main. I thought like maybe like the Wicked Wench is like the Spanish Main because it's like the main ship. You take the longboats, the tiny boats to go to the main one. It's not. It's a whole territory. It's a map. I had no idea.
It makes sense, and that's why they say he's the most fearsome pirate in all the Spanish Main.
Yeah, so like in the entire territory.
It's like a big space with a lot of pirates in it, so then that would make sense. Okay, so your script, do you have anything else that you want to say about your script? Because I don't want to cut you off.
No. I do want to mention two things. One, Pirates Cove. I need to get better audio in Pirates Cove. I've heard a rumor that there's a connection between Pirates Cove and potentially gold or underpinning from gold that leans to Big Thunder. I've never heard it. I've only heard pirates kind of like squabbling in there. The Pirates Cove, if you're not familiar in Walt Disney World, if you go on the right-hand side, you go past the dungeon. Right before you get on the longboats on the right, there is a little tiny dugout area, which is pretty neat. And then you go into the actual, like the big expanse of it when we go like underground with all the stalactites and mites, and then into, where the helmsman is, the guy who's on I think he's on the back of this. I haven't worn this sweatshirt
he's there
forever. Yeah.
We've mentioned this before, I think, that the queue of Pirates of the Caribbean in Disney World only has two different sections of it. So one is like the dungeons, the prison, the garrison side, and that's the side you usually go in if you are going standby now. And then the other side would be the Pirates Cove side. So then you'll see there's like a treasure chest that's open with a whole bunch of stuff, and it's like it's not like super obvious, so I think a lot of people don't recognize that like it's a whole nother area. But if you go in the Lightning Lane side, you're going to go to the Pirates Cove side. If you're going on the standby side, you go through the garrison and the dungeons and whatnot.
Now, he's not singing this part of the script, but he does make reference to the Exitensio song with "We pillage and plunder, rifle and loot, yo ho, me hearties, yo ho." And then he also mentions swabbies. But swabbies is a reference to somebody who, you could call them a sailor or call them a pirate, but it was mainly people who were like low deck hands on a ship that literally mopped.
Yeah.
So swabbies.
They're swabbing the deck.
Here. Right, exactly. Swabbing the deck. Ahoy there, swabbies. Stand by to repel boarders. And then the last thing I want to mention in here, and I just think it's kind of cool, is he talks about golden doubloons, which as a kid, I never knew what golden doubloons were. At some point, I figured out that they're not medals or belt buckles and that they actually are coins. So it made me go down the rabbit trail of, well, how much is a golden doubloon worth and what does a golden doubloon look like? So I found a Spanish golden doubloon. So this is a two-sided one. And back in the 1798, this was 6.766 grams of gold, which would have been in 1798 worth about $4. In today's dollars, that would be worth $389.70 for a gold doubloon. So not a, yeah, dude, give me some gold doubloons. Where are the doubloons at?
Doubloons.
Doubloons. I mean, sometimes I like to blow up doubloons.
I thought it was dumb, but I liked it. So, funnily enough, there used to be something that was in a Disneyland. I think it was in a gift shop. I'm trying to remember where it was in Disneyland, but there was a machine that would actually create pieces of eight from like actual pieces of eight from a Spanish galleon from like history, like a real one. And it was like almost like a press penny machine, but you get these little souvenir coins. And I forgot to look it up before we got here. But so this was a really popular souvenir for a really long time, these pieces of eight. And so, and that is why
Is that the store named? Is it your store named Pieces of Eight?
Pieces of Eight is called that. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that was the location where you got it because it was the gift shop right outside of Pirates of the Caribbean. And but I think that is also why in the very first Pirates movie for Pirates of the Caribbean, they feature Pieces of Eight. It's like, it's the first thing you see. It's like the major thing for the plot. Spoiler alert. Is these pieces of eight, right? And that is because I think it was not only it was pirate lore, this was like such an important thing, but it was a huge souvenir that everybody got in Disneyland. So
yeah, I love that. That's cool. Yeah. I wonder, I'm sure you can find them on eBay, like Pieces of Eight from Disneyland, and I wonder how much they go for, because much like anything, when it doesn't exist anymore, there's usually some sort of collectability, especially if there's nostalgia attached and you're like, man, when I was a kid, I always wanted to get one and I didn't get one, and boom, you know?
Yeah, I was gonna try to look it up, but
Yeah, no worries.
oh, here, and it looked like this pieces of 8 doubloons, and it came with a little hole in it, so you could put on a keychain or like stamp.
Oh, stop! That's cool.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah,
Yeah. So
that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Those little personalized keepsakes, people love. I'm telling you, Mold-O-Matics. I don't know why Disney never got into them, but man, Mold-O-Matics or Mold-O-Ramas, which are those plastic injected souvenirs, they're so simple to change out. They are very, very cheap to maintain. They're basically bulletproof, these things. And people love to collect them.
Mm-hmm.
And they watch their little toy get made. And you just watch people get them all day. They're super cool.
It looks like, they had them for quite some time, but they stopped being like actually made from doubloons after a while. But you could also put your name on them. Charlotte Bob. Oh. This looks like this is from 1998.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Love that. I have merch next. I don't know what you have going on.
Oh, well, I need to finish my script. I've got a lot of scripts.
Okay.
But I will say this is what the original pieces of 8 look like in Disneyland.
They were way cooler.
Yeah, this is what you got that were made.
Did you get that? Was that still look like that, or did it all get smoothed out when they stamped them?
This is what it looked like after it got stamped. So it moved from like the gold or whatever, like pieces of 8 essentially, and then they would stamp it and they would put a little hole in it so you could wear it as a necklace or put it on your keychain.
Did the backside then have the Disneyland's emblem thing? Or no?
I don't know. I feel like from what I remember from researching this, I'm pretty sure this was like the older style. And then later on, like closer in the 90s and whatnot, then it became the ones where you could get your name on it.
Yeah. I kind of feel like they went, much like they did. This is ridiculous to compare, but it's really true. When they open up Galaxy's Edge and they're like, use your credits here. And there's the refresher. And people are like, how much is it? And where's the bathroom? Like, I feel like pieces 8 were too authentic. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Like this one says, this is from 1973 for this one. So
okay.
This is one of the originals, I think.
They're so cool.
I know. The Pirates of the Caribbean opened in 1967. So this is still a few years after that. But I believe this is the one that they originally had. And then they replaced it with the newer ones. And then now they don't have them at all, which is such a bummer. So, but it's okay. I'll move on.
Such is life.
Yeah. Back to Disneyland's Barker Bird. We're going to talk a little bit about this script. I do have a bit of this one talking. It is a long one, so I'm not going to show you all of it because we would be here all day.
It is the most amazing show in Disneyland. It is 17 minutes in all. The birds tell jokes, the flowers sing, the tikis chant, and my cousin Jose, he whistles and he croons, me, my, la. Oh, excuse me, sir. Quickly, take your time and hurry. Get your tickets to Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room. And it is air-conditioned. Oh, excuse me. I am allergic to feathers. Your attention, please. United Airlines presents Flight 14U2C. See, it is one show for you to see. One for you and everyone. It is Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room. United Airlines not only welcomes you aboard, but inside, I say inside, you sit down on your tail feathers and watch the most exciting show in Disneyland. You see more than 200 flowers, tikis, and all my relations. Those amazing birds, they come to life. For 17 minutes, no one takes a siesta, especially the audience. Wait till you hear the tikis do the Hawaii.
I would. Don't you feel like they? Don't you feel like they have to keep saying that it's 17 minutes long just so you realize that it's worth the price of admission because it's a separate ticketed price? Like they have to be get your money's worth. Like
Yeah, it was 75 cents to get in, and it was the most expensive attraction in Disneyland at the time, which I think is hilarious because most people don't even know it exists now. Like, I'll like talk about the Tiki Room, and people are like, "What is that?" Like, "Oh, I didn't go in there." Or, like, "I didn't know what that was there." Like, it's like people literally don't know what it is now. Of like, it was the thing that you went to see because it was the first time there was ever audio animatronics.
Yeah, I think most people only use it to seek refuge for the most part, unless you're nostalgic or historical significance, or you like the music. Most people don't really go to the Tiki Room or to Country Bears or to the Carousel of Progress. They're just uninteresting to most normal folks because they want rides. Like, I want to go on a ride.
Right. Yeah. The shows are not as big as the rides. Yeah, I agree with that. So let's talk about a few of the jokes that are in here. Some of them you already heard. I really love that one. United Airlines presents flight 1 for you to see.
Yeah.
See, it's one show for you to see. That was such a clever one.
Love that.
And then he talked about, gosh, I better just start from the top so I can get this right. So we talked about I Don't Want to Set the World on Fire and Come Josephine in Her Flying Machine. There's also another song referenced. He says, they talk, they whistle, they tell jokes, they sing, and then he sings off key and he sings memories, memories. And this is actually one, I think I can pull up a little piece of it. It is from Bing Crosby actually sings this song called Memories. Kind of really reminds me of my grandma. She used to sing songs like that in the kitchen when she would make like ravioli and whatnot. She'd be like rolling out the ravioli, and like my job was always to sit. Sorry, it's a little Kate side tangent, but like my job was to take the fork and like crimp down the edges of all the.
Oh, that's a big job.
Yeah, because my grandma was Italian. Like she's first generation American from Italy. So I have like my great grandmother came over on through Ellis Island. I have the rolling pin that she brought from Italy. So making ravioli was ours. I think she would always sit in the kitchen like sing Bing Crosby and Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra, and like that was her thing. So anyway, sorry, that was a little bit nostalgic for me. But
Do you make fresh pasta still?
I have made it. I haven't done it in a couple of years, so I will. It's just a lot of work, honestly. But the recipe's really good. It's just handed down in our family for generations. So Anyway, Memories, this one was originally recorded in 1911, but then Bing Crosby recorded it in 1947, and that's when it became very popular with the people that would be going to Disneyland in 1963. So that is a reference there. Memories is from that song. They also have a really interesting reference to the, like, after he sings this, the Memories, he says, "What did you expect, the Vienna Boys Choir?" Which to us, we're just like, what? But in 1961, 2 years before the Tiki Room opened, Walt Disney had a film that it was made called Almost Angels, which is a fictional drama starring the Vienna Boys Choir. Cinematographic reasons persuaded the Austrian government to allow the boys to legally wear the Austrian national emblem on the breast of their uniform. And that tradition then continues to this day. So if you ever see the Vienna Boys Choir and you see them wearing the Austrian symbol on their clothing, it's because of this film for Walt Disney, because he thought it would look good in the film to have them wearing the Austrian emblem on their clothes. So he refers to the Vienna Boys Choir because it was a popular film that Walt Disney had made 2 years previous. So that reference is in there. There's also a Shakespeare reference. We've talked about Shakespeare multiple times, how the Imagineers reference Shakespeare all over the place, especially in the Haunted Mansion. But there's one, he says, "Amigos, Romans, and Disneylanders, stop walking while I'm squawking." So that would be "Friends, Romans, and countrymen, lend me your ears," from Julius Caesar, spoken by Mark Antony. So that is a Shakespearean reference from the great orator of the Barker Bird. Another one that I think is really interesting in the script is he says this whole section. I'll read the section first and then I'll explain. He says it's super cauliflower, super California show, See, I cannot say supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. I guess I'm really a feather brain. I'm back to business. Super United Airlines presents Walt Disney's Califragilistic Enchanted Tiki Room. Get your expialidocious tickets right here. So he like winds it all throughout the next couple of phrases. What's really interesting about this is that Mary Poppins was being filmed when this list came out. So to Poppins, but May and September of 1963. And the Tiki Room opened June 23rd of 1963. So right in the middle of that filming. So Mary Poppins hadn't been filmed yet. Was in the middle of being filmed. People didn't know what this was yet. So this was actually like a teaser, if you will, for Mary Poppins, because this script came out before that film got released to the public. So people probably didn't know what he was talking about. And then once Mary Poppins came out, they're like, it's Mary Poppins, right?
Was Mary Poppins like commercially super successful right off the bat?
Yes, massively.
So that would have been huge. But initially, everyone was like, what on earth is this bird talking about? I mean, half the time, I feel like that bird the entire time people are like, what is this bird talking about?
Yeah, so I think that's fascinating because Mary Poppins didn't come out until 1964. So that's like a year after this Barker. I'm trying to remember when the Barker bird was removed. It wasn't that long. I don't think he was there. He was there probably every time I see him, he's still talking about United Airlines. So as long as that sponsorship lasted, and then they removed him. So, and the other things I've got about this bird, I think we need to talk about the fact that he was voiced by Wally Bogue. Okay. So his voice is, he was voiced also, Jose, the bird Jose. Wally also did that voice as well. If you know Disney history, you probably are very familiar with Wally Bogue. He was the Guinness World Record setter for the Golden Horseshoe Revue, which was the most performed stage show of all time. I think it still holds that record. He did shows 3 times a day, 5 days a week for nearly 27 years in Disneyland. Also in Disney World, he went over there and did that show there for a little bit. He played the character Pecos Bill. By the time he retired his role of Pecos Bill in 1982, he'd performed nearly 40,000 productions of the revue, which I think is pretty fantastic.
That's a lot of shows.
Yeah, it's massively, just so many shows. And he also, I want to say that he grew up in Portland in Oregon, so he's an Oregonian, which also I think to me adds a few extra points to the Barker Bird side for the Tiki Room, because I just love Oregon. But that's neither here nor there really. But yes, Wally Bogue, he was a fantastic performer. He also did at least one episode of The Mouseketeers where he does some really funny skit with some balloons. He had a very unique sense of humor, if you've ever seen his stuff. It's very, very interesting. Yeah, he's voiced by Wally Bogue. Do you know who yours is voiced by? Can't talk.
Yeah, I do. I don't want to talk about it. He doesn't have like a great, it's like his later in life is not so great. But when he was an Imagineer, Gary Goddard was a good person.
Details about it, yeah. But it was Gary Goddard, and he did create the Hoop-de-Doo review. So I mean, let's give people a reference there. But yeah, his later in life made some maybe not so great choices. So we'll just leave it there. Do you have anything else you want to share about your bird, my friend?
I wanted to show merch. That's cool.
It's a fun pin.
Yeah. And this one does reference that a parrot's life for me. But he had a lot of different pins, like so many pins. There's tons of them. Parrot's life for me. This one is kind of interesting because Cotton is the bird from the movie, but yet the 2006 retheme of Pirates had Captain Jack in it and removed the Barker bird, but there he is on the shoulder for the merch. I just think, again, merch is so funny. It's very, very different.
Yeah.
And this one shows the date for New Orleans Square on here from cool. March 18th, 1967. And then we have a skeleton bird, which came out for like a Halloween, kind of like a helmsman vibe for our Barker bird, which I thought was weird but interesting. And then there was a D23 release, which I just think is fun because it's kind of all of these things that are quasi-defunct if you ignore Mickey like this and the bonnets. But you have Mr. Toad's Wild Ride Devil. You have from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, the like under sea dragon. And then the people who have some mechanophobia. And then you have Barker Bird as well.
Well, that Mickey's from the Mickey Mouse review. So quasi defunct. It's like in Tokyo now, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not in Disney World.
Wishables, which bring them back. They were so good. $10, greatest things ever that they ever made. And you could get them for $8 with your discount. It was amazing. But Pirate Red, the Barker Bird, the Helmsman, or just any skeleton pirate, and then
Pick your favorite.
Yeah,
Skeleton pirate.
Pick a skeleton pirate. Then there was a Vetter plush for him that was
that's
much more intricate. Yeah, like this one is. I mean, it's good. It's cutesy. It's like the Funko version of, you know what I mean, like what they actually look like. But that one's really cool.
That one is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
And then these things sold out really, really quick. The attraction Mickey ear ornaments, but he was dead center of that. And this came out 10 years after he had been removed. So I think that's kind of cool.
That's interesting because they combine the Disneyland version with the Disney World version there, because the pirate stays the pile of treasure. That's for
Disneyland.
Sure.
And Disney World is the one with the seagull head.
I'll tell you what, we have to do Pirates of the Caribbean as one of our long
at
one of those points.
Here's a treasure chest music box with him in it with a snow globe.
Snow globe.
Mm-hmm.
Fun.
Yep. They had, I don't know if you remember these things. I never collected them, but Vinylmations were really popular for a long time.
Yeah.
He had his own Vinylmation. And then what happened to my, you know what? Is it okay if I show some of your merch? Just because I found some.
Yeah, I don't have any, so it's great.
Yeah, you're good. So I found this Barker Bird parrot pin, which I've actually seen. I've seen this one quite a few times on pin boards. So it's out there. And then this one's really cool because it celebrates the 60 years of the Tiki Room. And then there's another one. This one is nicer because he actually, and he actually slides a little bit, so he moves.
Oh, that's cool.
But this is again for the 60th. And then I did find a plush. He was the Chase Tiki Room. So he was like the mystery one from when they did the Wishables Tiki Room edition.
I love that.
Yeah.
He's so cute.
Mm-hmm. Now, all right, so in 2006, our Pirates gets refurbed, and we lose our pirate up here at the top. But we don't lose him entirely. So from 2006 to 2012, our little pirate parrot is going to go to downtown Disney, which is now Disney Springs, in the World of Disney, which had a theme section for 6 more years. We got our pirate parrot, and I actually found a video of him in the display section. It's only 18 seconds long, so it's not a lot, but you get a little taste of what he looked like inside the World of Disney for another 6 years. So he does sing A Parrot's Life for Me. It's hard to hear on here, but the one thing that is new, he's got movement in his little peg leg. Look at his little peg leg shake. Look at
I thought he saw that before.
No, he didn't move around. No, he was like stationary. He didn't like flick his little leg. But yeah, I love that.
He's looking a little rough though. Like his feathers.
Oh my, no, he was bad, dude. He was bad looking at that point. You know? Like 6 years of people like looking at him, throwing stuff at him inside the store.
So can I talk a little bit about what happened to our Barker Bird? I kind of mentioned they took him.
No, I don't really care. No, please do. Yes.
I mentioned that they took him down. What they did was they did put a long time piece on a display. If you don't know where that is, that's inside the Opera House in Disneyland. Right now they have a Disney 100 display in there if you want to go in and see it. Usually they have some really amazing Disney artifacts in there. We haven't seen him since there. I think he's in storage now. But he did kind of come back when they made the Tropical Hideaway, because Rosita went on tour here, and she has the little Barker bird hat and the little cane sitting in front of her when you go to see her at the Tropical Hideaway. So, and she does she doesn't say like come into the Tropical Hideaway, but she tells a lot of jokes and calls out to people. And so we kind of got our Barker bird back in Rosita in the Tropical Hideaway, which just makes me really happy that they thought to do that, because they don't need to have Rosita there like squawking at you while you're eating, but it does add so much atmosphere, and it's just really, really fun. But they did give her a little cover so she doesn't get all damaged by the rain and stuff like the other Barker birds were.
Yeah, when I was doing research, I saw that same picture. Well, I mean, there's several ones. I was trying to find one where you could see the handle of the cane better. It's hard. Nobody really takes that angle. Everybody takes the other one because it's a better picture. Totally get that. But yeah, like, he just kind of vamoosed, and they took his cane and threw his hat. Where's his bow tie? Who's got his bow tie, Kate?
I don't know. They didn't put it on Rosita. Rosita, she's got like a little like black thing around her neck, but it's definitely not a bow tie. It's more of a decoration.
Kate, she killed him and took his costume.
No, that's horrifying. I don't like that story. Something I did not mention is that for a long time over in Disney World, we did also have a Barker bird that was hanging out there in front of the Tiki Room up in the rafters. And I won't get into too much of that because we did talk about that Barker bird a lot in our Tiki Room episode. But similar in looks to, it was more of a toucan-esque. He really wasn't like the exact same appearance as this Barker bird. He didn't have the hat. He didn't have the cane. He didn't have the bow tie. Ironically, though, he did have the majority of the script. I actually listened to both of them all the way through and wrote them out because I'm crazy. And I figured out what it is.
You heard it first, kids. She's crazy.
I'm a completionist, as you say. So what they did was they took out all the pieces that just didn't apply to Disney World, and they just cut it. But it's exactly the same voice. It's Wally Bogue. It's the same script. He's saying the same things, except when it says, he would say, like, squawk, he'd go like, ah, and then like Tiki Room, instead of, in the Tiki Room, instead of saying Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room, they just put a squawk in wherever they needed to take out some of the words to make it sound natural. And then they took out all the pieces that were about United Airlines sponsorship. They left in some of the ticket sales until they stopped selling tickets. So that was they took out that part. They took out a lot of location specific stuff that just essentially didn't apply. So that's what's the differences between the scripts. But some of it is the same. And they took out some of those really wonderful musical references that I loved. They kind of cut those too, which I'm bummed about. But probably because it was later. It'd been like a decade later. And they're like, nobody's going to know these things anymore. You know?
Yeah.
Something that I feel like is the cherry on top of my argument for why my bird is the superior Barker bird. I have to say, because he says in his script, he talks about come aboard. And this is something we actually see inside the Tiki Room script, where Fritz says, glad to see you all aboard, ashore, or wherever you are. That comes from that United partnership talking about coming aboard, because it's like you come aboard the aircraft. So that is why we have those words that Fritz says and still says, because people thought, well, it doesn't overtly apply to United Airlines, so they never changed the script of the Tiki Room. But this is evidence as to that's where those words came from inside the Tiki Room. So that to me is just like a little extra like, okay, this is why we have this, because of the Barker bird lives on inside the Tiki Room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our script does mention aboard as well. There be longboats waiting to take you aboard.
Well, maybe he was referencing, maybe that's a throwback to the original Barker bird. Just that might be a stretch, but still.
It's okay. I've been stretching on this whole salty thing all day. So.
Alrighty. So I know we haven't been like fighting through this whole thing, but I feel like we've had a little bit of back and forth.
No, it's been good in terms of like learning about the origins. That's honestly all I wanted to do, is just have an episode where we got an opportunity to look at the only really iconic ones that we get throughout this. And I just think that they're really interesting character pieces that all their sole purpose was to drag you into attractions.
Yeah. And it's interesting that they both kind of have like a secondary version that's like lesser. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. I mean, we a lot of script that's boring that nobody wanted to hear anyway for your
Excuse me.
and then our Barker Bird basically is like Disney World's. Honestly, it doesn't. Yours, because of the way that it looks, it would have to be outside. Where they placed it is not relevant for pulling people in. Do you know what I mean? It would have had to have been outside. I think they placed him incorrectly in the beach. Good location for just an audio animatronic, but bad location for a Barker Bird, because if you're already there, you're already on the ride, basically. You're like 15 feet. Yeah, yours.
No, because, okay, so in a lot of my script, which I didn't talk about because it would have taken us all night, he talks about coming into the Enchanted Garden and come and see like the things that are in the Enchanted Garden. So he's calling you into the waiting area of the TV.
No. Time out. I'm talking about the Pirates one in Disneyland is geographically located incorrectly. No, yours is important. Who's going to pay that? Who's going to pay 75 cents to go watch some 17-minute long Feather Fest? No thanks.
Hey.
Hey. No, I think yours made the most sense in terms of actually needing to draw people in. People wanted Pirates. In fact, they were furious when Pirates wasn't there, So, and in fact, they immediately made those buttons that said, the Pirates are coming, right? Yeah. So all of those things were in the works immediately when they disappointed guests. However, this is just one of those cool instances where there's a lot of Floridians, and Florida became a destination where California was more locals. Florida is a destination and a tourist town. So for a lot of them, they maybe not had experienced any audio of California, Barker Birds, or from a Tiki Room perspective, because we had one for the Tiki Room and for Pirates of the Caribbean. So I think that's kind of cool. And both of them exist in the same space of Adventureland. There's no other Barker Birds, although there would have been a Barker Bird kind of quasi narrator for if we would have gotten, what's the name of the one that Mark Davis, help me out?
Western River Expedition.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, what's interesting? I was thinking about why they put a Barker Bird in the Pirates one, because it doesn't make any sense that so many people wanted that ride and were anticipating that ride and were asking about it. Why did they put a Barker Bird in? And the only thing I can figure is because the entrance of that building, it looks like it just kind of like goes on forever out into like the abyss. Like it's a very
it looks like a store. It doesn't even look like a ride entrance.
Yeah.
I get the outside exterior being the giant fortress that it is. It's gorgeous and it's really pretty. But the problem is it just looks like a cavern. It reminds me of in Spain, there was this religious location for, I believe it was for Muslims. And it was just it was self-repeating arches. It was gorgeous. But it was all like underground. And that's what it reminds me of. Every time I go into Pirates, it's like dark, underground with all these arches. But it's not exactly like bringing you in. And granted, this is a fortress. It's got a dungeon. It's not exactly the most inviting place. So that's probably the majority. But if you think about it too, they didn't put like giant pirate flags out initially. At the end, they have like a mast. There's giant skull rocks, pirate flags.
Well, they put that out when they did Pirates of the Caribbean is when that got added.
Right. So like that's
before that got added.
That became the carrot, where there was no carrot before. It was just like some beige archway into a dungeon.
Yeah. So it makes sense, like just going through the arches, like you'll get to something cool. Like try to convince them.
And John, you make a good point. It was to get people out of the sun. Yeah, that's the purpose of it, is to not have an exterior queue like they have in California, because you can't get away with that. It's the same reason why It's a Small World doesn't have a beautiful exterior like it does in Disneyland, because of all the rain. You'd have to shut that thing down all the time.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's like Disneyland's original queue you just kind of walk in the building and immediately, like even walking by, you would see people going by on the boats. You would see that little like area with the treasure chest and the map. Like it looked interesting just walking by from the outside. You'd see people going by on the boats. You'd be like, I want to go on one of those boats and go on that ride. But you don't see any of that in the Disney World version. There's no hints of what the ride is at all.
It said Pirates of the Caribbean, and there was a ship painted behind the Barker Bird, and that was it.
Yeah,
like,
it could be a store. Yeah, you're right.
That's what I'm saying. Like without the parrot, like what even is this place?
Yeah,
there was no real. They should have had a giant skull and crossbones flag somewhere. That would have just been a huge call out for pirates. You know, everybody knows that, whether you don't know pirates. Every kid knows that.
Yeah, I mean, I think if people didn't know Disney very well and like didn't know anything about the parks, they could easily walk by that area and not really realize what's in there. Even today, you know, and it's sad that they don't have the Barker Bird anymore, because I think it was, you know, it's more crowded today, and it's. I mean,
the one thing that is cool is there is a lot of callbacks to previous films. So your Treasure Islands, you know, it like pirates and having a sidekick parrot has been synonymous for a long time in film. So it makes sense as to why they utilized one, but it's, again, they should have. The outside could have been less just Spanish fortress and more piratey. To go.
Well, yeah, so it's interesting to me because Mark Davis was totally in charge of that process. Like the whole thing was.
Yeah, but
he oversaw.
He mailed that in when he realized he had to make it again, and his one attraction that he desperately wanted to make was taken away from him. Like
he was so mad. Yeah, he said he didn't want to do Pirates again. He's like, why would we repeat ourselves? He was really mad.
Yeah, and that's again why we didn't do the waterfall. And it's kind of like it's going up that gangplank was like a big, we're not doing this again.
No,
you know, it's messed up.
He didn't want to do it because in Western River Expedition, remember, we talked about this, where it has a going up the waterfall and then a huge slide afterwards. So he always thought going up the waterfall was super anticlimactic, because in Disneyland, you go up it and then you do this like tiny little slide to like just slide into the water. That's it. Like you're waiting, this huge anticipation of buildup of going up this waterfall, and then you get nothing. So he's like, I'm not having that in this Pirates ride, especially because he wanted to do it in Western River, and he knew that if he did the same thing, they would not allow it in 2 attractions. So he's like, nope, they're getting out in the basement and going up the speed ramp, because I still want to make this amazing ride over here, which we never ended up getting, and that's tragic.
Yeah, and honestly, in looking at just the Pirates in general, Disneyland overshadows Disney World by so much. And that's for another day. But it's a disappointing end. But still, glad we had a bird. It was interesting and fun.
Bring him back.
Yeah, I mean, both the birds were fun. Yeah, bring them both back.
They kind of need it now in Disneyland. Like nobody, knows the Tiki Room is there. So it's a perfect time to bring the Tiki
Room him back.
Bird back.
Put a little umbrella over him and bring him back.
See while we're at it. Let's just think the whole thing. But I guess this all begs the question: which Barker Bird do we think is best?
Yeah, That's
not fair.
What do you mean it's not fair? I mean, to celebrate.
Hey, that's all I got.
And I got you that too. That's not even fair.
You did. You did. Thank you.
No, you know what? This was an amazing, amazing find. A couple weeks ago, we're actually going to give one away to subscribers, but I found it at Character Warehouse. So
yes, I love that.
Yeah.
Honestly, if we're going to be honest, like I love all the Barker Birds, probably almost equally.
There's no real winner here, I'm fans of, me, I love the Tiki Room, and that would have been, I never got a chance to experience the Barker Bird ever. So that would have been really fun, because it just, again, was a really unique way that set Disney apart, Yeah.
Well, I do think that this Barker Bird from the Disneyland side, I do think is the original Barker Bird that then inspired all of these other ones. So, I think they borrowed from the idea of this original one. And I'm always about the original, but I do have a special place in my heart for little Peg Leg Pete because he's such a great little guy. Not gonna lie.
He's a little salty guy. They were unique. I don't know which one's better. I think they have their own characteristics and they're very dramatically different. And they did a nice job. I do think our script could have been a little bit more cleverly crafted. However, it still is very on point for what Pirates would be. But there's not a lot of like deep cuts or callbacks.
Yeah.
Or
like
even jokes.
Yeah, the Disneyland one has all these unique, tiny little things woven into it. And there's even ones that I didn't mention. There's one that's about, he does kind of like an imitation of the train, like the Disneyland Railroad going into the depot. He makes like all these vocalizations to make him sound like a train. And he also has one that makes him sound like a car, like Main Street USA. So he has like all these.
That's fun.
Yeah, these like
mimicry things.
Yeah, so it's not only talking about like the sponsor, because he could have just talked to sponsor to, too much, but he talks about different parts of the park. He talks about movies. He talks about these songs that were so nostalgic for people, and especially trying to draw in, you would say, the crowd that was really paying attention to a lot of those songs and whatnot that would like to sit down in some air-conditioned spaces. So, yeah, some really wonderful things in the script, and I'm sad that we don't have him anymore. Poor little Juan. Well, I think this was a really fun episode to learn. I feel like I learned about the Spanish Main. we learned about his Peg Leg Pete's little. I also heard him as like the Plaza parrot or something. He was also called that sometimes. And then good old Barker Bird and all of his songs that he would sing, like the one in Titanic. Yeah, so I think that's it for the Barker Bird. We'll let people decide.
Yeah, you'll have to pick your parrot and let us know which parrot is best.
Oh, I will say I am going to do something a little bit special because of this episode. If for all of our Distory with Kate and Kirk listeners out there, you can have this shirt, which is the original name that they had thrown out there for the Tiki Room, which is Enchanted Tiki and Bird Room, featuring Disney's Legends of the Enchanted Tiki Show. That was the name that they were going to call the Tiki Room once upon a time. But it does feature a little Juan, the Barker Bird, and then a Dole Whip, and then at the bottom there's a little hibiscus flower. So this, if you want your own shirt, I am giving you guys a code for $5 off that's good through the end of July. Just use the code Barker Bird Battle, one word. So the shirts are available at DisneyCicero.com. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us for this episode of Distory with Kate and Kirk. We always appreciate you guys hanging out with us. And next week, we don't know what we're doing yet, but it will probably be something not...
And surprise! Surprise!
It probably will not be something jumping into a long series for a little while as we get through the rest of the summer, I'm guessing. So we'll have something new and unique for you guys next week. And we appreciate you guys listening and being with us on this Barker Bird battle this evening. We hope that you guys learned a little something. Kirk, do you have any final thoughts you want to share?
This was fun, and I like when we only do one episodes.
I know. All right. Well, thank you, everybody.
Adios.